Part 11. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 101. Devils, all of them are a bunch of devils. On the island, screams came and went. Pika raised his huge fist and swung straight out, and the powerful force bombarded down, and the person who was touched directly turned into pulp. Diamante uses the fluttering fruit to turn anything on her body into a deadly weapon. Torrible slime fruit, while a bit disgusting, is a great way to control enemies. The most powerful is still Doflamingo, whose sharp threads turn into sharp blades and harvest life. Wherever they passed, not a single grass grew. Captain, don't you really need our help? It seems that it will take a long time to get rid of these enemies. Arthur looked at the enemies that were pouring in from afar, very different from the ones Doflamingo had fought. Wearing a uniform costume, it looks like a force under its command. These are the people that Passus brought. Keeping one hand in everything is the essence of his prudence as a businessman. It may take a while for them to finish, so let's help. Brnya, how about I'll leave it to you? Hearing Arthur's first half of the sentence, Kiana immediately became excited, but the second half of the sentence made her instantly freeze in place. Mission guaranteed, Captain. Brnya nodded and walked out. Well, why let Brnya go? Kiana hugged Arthur's arm and tilted her head back with a pitiful look. Don't worry, there will be a chance for you to fight in the future. Brnya stepped forward, and at the same time, the heavily armored bunny appeared behind her, slowly levitating her body. Is Brnya going to take a good position to strike with fire? Mei muttered to herself in confusion. Brnya has multiple armor pairs, all of which are based on fire power, and they still know about it. But in the face of so many enemies, you have to use a lot of fire power. Let's just watch, Brnya will be fine. Arthur also wondered what Brnya would do in the face of so many enemies. Soon, the answer was revealed. In the face of hundreds of enemies, Brynya's firepower alone is naturally not enough. So, in front of Arthur, one after another Titan mechs emerged. These Titan mechs were placed in the system warehouse by Arthur and never used, and now they are being put in handy by Brnya. One after the other. The corners of Arthur's mouth twitched. Is this going to take out all the Titan mechs in the warehouse? Yes, that's what Brnya did. Since you want to destroy the enemy, you naturally have to use all your strength. Oh my god, what the hell is this? Diamante's eyes widened as he watched the Titans that looked like they were approaching. Fire! A full 300 Titan mechs were grouped together to form a phalanx. Brnya gave the order, and all the Titan mechs attacked. Each Titan can fire nearly 10 cannonballs. And these 300 Titan mechs. The cannonballs streaked across the sky like meteors, and with Brynya's precise control, all attacks hit the target with precision. As for the damage caused by the aftermath, it was no longer in Brynya's mind. Dense explosions covered all areas of the island. The roars rang out one after another, deafening, and could not be subsided for a long time. That's really. Around Arthur, 4 Titan mechs spread their rain shields to protect them. Looking outside through the light blue shield, Kiana smashed her mouth, not knowing how to describe it for a while. Well, it looks like this Titan mecha can be handed over to Brynya's command in the future. These Titan mechs can be manipulated by Brnya to exert even greater power. Like a brain, it unites these Titan mechs. After a round of attacks, the entire island fell silent. In the smoke of gunpowder, a huge rock cracked a crack in the middle. Doflamingo and the others walked out. The moment the cannonball fell, Pika used the power of the fruit to protect Doflamingo and them. Otherwise, even if you don't die, you will look very embarrassed. In the sky, Brnya slowly floated down and landed in front of Arthur. Captain, Brnya has completed her mission. Well, that's a good job, and I'll hand over these Titan mechs to you in the future. Arthur said and patted Brynja on the head. Okay, Captain. Brynja nodded, and the Titan mechs lined up in a phalanx vanished one by one. Just then, a sharp whistling sound sounded from above. Everyone looked up, and a huge body fell from the sky. Boom! It slammed into the ground, and the rubble splattered everywhere. Pika was closest to the falling figure, and immediately raised his huge fist to attack. The corners of Kaido's mouth cracked, revealing a mouthful of large white teeth, and he also raised his fist and blasted upward. The Pika, which is made of rocks, is several times larger than Kaido, but the momentum on its body is much weaker. Boom! The two fists collided, and the powerful force spread outwards and swept around. In comparison, the previous battle was like a fight. Click, click, click. Cracks spread out of Pika's right arm, and a powerful force exploded one after another inside the stone. Boom! With a loud bang, the giant of rocks exploded. The rubble scattered, and a figure flew out upside down. Pika! Doflamingo's eyes lit up with anger. It is unforgivable to dare to take action against his family. 5-color line. The body soared into the air, and the right hand was bent into a beast claw, and the sharp silk thread swung towards Kaido. Thorn La La. With his bare upper body and armed collar attached to it, Doflamingo's attack was useless. How is that possible? Brush. Kaido raised his mace high and swung it down. Boom! It hit Doflamingo in the back all at once. Consciousness blurred, and he fell heavily to the ground. Dover! Diamanti and Torrible yelled and rushed towards Kaido. But now Kaido's strength has already made a qualitative leap. In the face of the attacks of these two people, he also waved his mace simply and rudely. Bang bang! After two muffled sounds, there were two more people lying on the ground. Arthur! Kaido ignored the 4 Doflamingo who fell to the ground, staring straight ahead and yelling. It's as if I want to vent all the breath that I have held in my heart all these years. The momentum of the whole body burst out, stirring the dark clouds in the sky. Standing here at this moment is no longer the trainee crew of the Rocks Pirates, but Kaido, who is already strong enough to dominate one side. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 102. As far as the eye can see, 20 warships move forward in the shape of arrows. On the foremost deck, Akainu is looking into the distance with a telescope in his hand. As far as the eye can see, the outline of a small island has emerged. It's just that the whole island is filled with gunsmoke. Is that the target? What's going on? It's a little far away, and I only see the smoke of gunpowder. But Akainu, who often mingles on the battlefield, naturally understands what this means. There must have been a considerable battle on the island. Maybe the pirates are infighting. Humph, pirates are always pirates, and they can only be destroyed under the righteous sanctions of the navy. Akainu snorted coldly, very disdainful of the pirates, and raised his hand to shout at the phone bug. All warships are filled with shells, waiting for orders. At the sound of the order, the navy suddenly moved, and one shell after another was filled, waiting for a roar. And at the same time, in the center of the island, Arthur! A roar came from Kaido's mouth. Looking at Arthur standing in front of him, Kaido's body was full of momentum, as if he had met an enemy. This kind of inexplicable thing made Arthur a little confused. It seems that he doesn't have much communication with Kaido. How do you feel so angry with him? Captain. Rita took a step forward, and the blue night moon spirit appeared on her body. May didn't speak, a subtle arc of electricity flickered around her body, and the armor didn't emerge, but it was ready. The holy wings behind Kiana came out, and the twin guns in her hands were ready to fire. The reloaded bunny behind Brynja reappeared, and the energy in the muzzle of the cannon gradually converged. Bella, on the other hand, is more direct, taking the form of a dragon. Roar! An angry roar spread from his mouth, and the wind raged around him. In the face of such a lineup, Kaido's face couldn't help but change. The momentum of the whole body was completely suppressed, and he stood in place and did not dare to move forward again. "What's the matter, Kaido? You screamed so loudly just now, and now rush over." Arthur stood behind and beckoned to Kaido, with a smirk on his face that wanted to be punched at him. "Humph, what kind of ability is hiding behind a woman? If you have the ability, we will fight one-on-one." Although Kaido is 5 big and 3 thick, he is not reckless. If this rushes up, it will definitely be besieged. One-on-one. Arthur smiled and shook his head. "Well, since you're all here, I can't let you go back empty-handed." Arthur waved at Rita and walked towards Kaido. "Captain!" Mei screamed a little worriedly. They naturally knew Arthur's strength, but they just subconsciously wanted to solve the part of the battle by themselves. "Don't worry, it's okay." Arthur brushed through Mei's long, silky hair, nodded, and stood across from Kaido. "Come, now I'm one-on-one with you, long time no see, let me see how much you've improved." Yasuo beckoned as he spoke, looking calm. On the contrary, this gesture made Kaido suspicious. "You didn't mean to lure me over, did you?" Kaido's eyes looked at Rita and the others, and he suddenly realized that he had rushed out so violently, and he was a little ill-conceived. Originally wanted to teach Doflamingo a lesson, but suddenly found Arthur. In the Rocks era, as an intern member, he could only look up to the existence. Now, he has gained great power and is desperate to prove himself. Prove yourself no weaker than anyone, including Locks. It's just that now he can't challenge Locks, so challenge the existence of Locks. So when I saw Arthur, I ran over in high spirits. I didn't expect it, Kaido, did you eat the fruit of cowardice?" Seeing Kaido's cautious look, the corners of Arthur's mouth appropriately revealed a hint of sarcasm. Kaido snorted coldly, didn't say much, and cautiously approached Arthur step by step. Arthur stood still, not moving. It's just that the smile on the corner of his mouth slowly becomes richer. Not good. Seeing this smile, Kaido's heart suddenly jumped, and he suddenly stopped halfway through. "Arthur, you." Kaido's pupils slowly dilated as he looked at Arthur. "What are you? Do you really think I'm going to fight you alone?" Arthur shrugged his shoulders and waved his hand as he spoke. "Ha ha ha, Miss Ben can't wait for a long time." Kiana jumped slightly, and her body soared into the air. The wings of light unfurled. Countless gamma rays spread out from inside the wings, and the final target was Kaido. "Heavy bunny, heavy ion cannon fire." A faint voice erupted from Brenya's mouth, and a huge pillar of light burst out from the muzzle of a cannon the size of a heavy rabbit's bowl. "Arthur, you!" Kaido roared angrily, his face flushed with anger, and he was immediately overwhelmed by the artillery fire. "So you're Navi, Kaido, and I hope you can learn a lesson from this incident, and you don't need to thank me." "Well, it can't be helped, I just like to be so helpful." Rumble. A huge explosion engulfs Kaido. "Hee, Captain, how was my attack just now?" Kiana descended from the sky next to Arthur and asked with a grin. "The attack is still good, but it's a little bit worse to deal with Kaido now." Kaido, who has eaten the devil fruit, has been in the ranks of masters after such a long time. Possessing a very strong physique in itself, coupled with the domineering appearance of the armed color, Kiana's attacks are dense but scattered after all. "I'm afraid it won't have the desired effect." Ha ha ha. A rampant laugh came from the center of the explosion. After the explosion, Kaido's body stood tall, but he looked a little embarrassed on the outside, leaving traces of being attacked. But this little injury is no different from nothing. "Huh, how?" Kiana blinked, a little incredulous. According to calculations, the strength of the target's body is abnormal, and the ultra-electromagnetic cannon is ready for fire. Brynja raised the cannon lightly with her right hand, and the energy in her mouth converged again. But a figure is faster. Brush. Only a faint lightning bolt was left in mid-air. Kaido's pupils contracted violently. A figure rushed towards him at an extremely fast speed, and the sharp sword chi was clearly felt before it was unsheathed. At this critical moment, he barely moved his body sideways. Burst. A stash of blood fell in midair. The thunder and lightning condensed, and Mei stood beside Kaido, the long knife in his hand pointed forward, and the purple pupils flashed with violent power. And yet at this very moment, from the sea in the distance, one after another artillery shells came in a salvo. The goal is the heart of the island. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 103. The warship in the sea moved forward, gradually approaching the island. The distance is close, and you can clearly see the situation on the island with a telescope. After all, there is no vegetation on the island, and there is no unobstructed view. What the hell is going on? Seeing a large number of people falling on the island, Akainu muttered in disbelief. Even if it's cannibalism, it's too ruthless. Whether there are any living people on the whole island is not a matter of opinion. The telescope searched carefully, and finally saw the area in the center of the island. It's him. Akainu's eyes dilated instantly, looking at the figure standing. The Arthur pirates. How did they get here? Could it be that they were the ones who attacked the nobles of other countries before? One question after another popped up in Akainu's mind. But the puzzled expression didn't last much on his face, and then gradually became a little crazy. If he could wipe out the Arthur pirates. This thought could not be suppressed in Akainu's mind, and he couldn't suppress it. Cyborg, Sengoku, and Carp, their evaluations of the Arthur pirates rang in their minds one after another. The Arthur pirates were strong, this is already an indisputable fact. But precisely because of this, the light in Akainu's eyes became more and more vigorous and crazy. The hands holding the phone bug were trembling slightly. Major General Sakazuki, what's wrong with you? The Navy next to him saw that something was wrong with the Red Dog, and couldn't help asking. It's fine. Akainu shook his head, but his right hand still trembled uncontrollably. Slowly raised the phone bug, and his lips trembled for a long time before he spoke slowly. All the warships, take out all the cannons. On the warship, in addition to the conventional cannons that are placed, there are naturally spare. Those navies didn't understand Akainu's mood at this moment, and immediately took action when they heard the order. One cannon after another was pushed onto the deck, and the muzzle of the black hole instantly multiplied several times. Fill the shells. The mood couldn't help but churn with the words spoken. The body trembled slightly, and I don't know if it was because of excitement and nervousness, or because of fear and fear. The warship continued to sail forward, waiting to be within range. Stop. The warship sailed from fast to slow, and then stopped. Akainu stood on the deck and took a deep breath. He knew that the next order was high. This situation should be reported to the Navy headquarters, but Akainu doesn't want to wait. Adjust the angle and aim at the center of the island. At this time, Akainu had regained his composure, and there was a cold light in his crazy eyes. Launch. Bang bang bang. At the sound of an order, the fire was immediately ignited, and one shell after another roared out, flying into the sky in unison, obscuring the sun above. Then it slammed down like a meteor towards the center of the island. A sharp break in the air came from above, and within the island, Arthur and his party couldn't help but look up. These navies are really, always come out and make trouble at critical moments. A smile tugged at Arthur's lips. Do you really think that so many shells can cause him harm? It seems necessary to teach the Navy a good lesson as well. Captain, leave it to me. This time, without waiting for Arthur to speak, Kiana immediately took action. The body jumped to its feet, its whole body was enveloped in light, and its armor changed. Starting from the head, a dull hair quietly stood up, the slightly closed eyes opened, and the golden pupils made people dare not look directly. The lawgiver of emptiness. Ants, always trying to challenge God's authority. The body was suspended in the void, and it walked towards the cannonball step by step. It seemed that the danger in front of her was gone. What's that? Could it be that? What Lieutenant General Karp said. In the telescope, seeing the figure suspended under countless cannonballs, Aquino couldn't help but think of Karp's story about the water capital. But no matter how strong you are, you can't be indifferent in the face of so many shells. However, the next scene did make Aquino's eyes widen. No, how is that possible? What kind of ability is this? I saw it in the sky, just as the cannonball was about to drop Kiana. One right arm is slowly extended. Syllable. Crisp snapping fingers echoed between heaven and earth. Countless black holes emerged in front of Kiana. The shell smashed into the black hole without making a wave. The sun was pouring down from the sky, as if nothing had happened before. Tut tut, no matter how many times you watch such a scene, it still makes people feel shocked. Is this the art of power? Arthur looked at Kiana, who was like a queen above, and a deep sense of satisfaction welled up in his heart. What just happened? Looking at the empty sky, all the navies, including Aquino, were at a loss. Suddenly, their attack vanished. Is it a dream? They were as stunned as statues, but Kiana in the sky wasn't. Step by step, step into the sky again. At this time, is the time of judgment, are you ready for death? The faint words came out of his mouth, making Aquino come back to his senses in an instant. Looking at the figure suspended in front of the sun, he looked down on the common people like a god. It made Aquino feel a deep powerlessness. From such a high position, they couldn't even attack. Everyone is ready. What preparation? Readiness for attack or readiness for defense? Aquino didn't say anything, and the Navy didn't know either, just looked up at the figure in the sky. Finally, it moved. Again he stretched out his right hand as before. The crisp snap of the fingers is like a call to death. Dense black holes reappeared, covering the sky. In the black hole, the cannonballs that had been sucked in immediately poured down. Defense. A loud roar came from Aquino's mouth. For this situation, although incredible, the Navy still has some ability to react. Immediately reload the cannonballs and fire them out, trying to fend off the falling attack. And the Navy, which has an armed color, has launched a ruthless defense. But how can a hasty response compare to a well-prepared attack? The shells from the bottom up were engulfed in an instant. Countless shells scattered down, covering the entire warship. Boom boom. Explosions rang out one after another, surrounding the entire warship. Kiana in the sky watched all this indifferently and looked to the side. Below, Arthur was waving to her. Hum. With a cold snort, his body slowly floated down. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return captain. Chapter 104. In the center of the island, Doflamingo, who had been knocked to the ground by Kaido, finally woke up. What happened? Doflamingo slowly got up from the ground, looked around blankly, and landed on Kaido in the distance. Memories revive instantly. At the time, he remembered that it was this big guy who knocked him to the ground. Dover, I finally remembered that this man is Kaido, and the current bounty is 830 million Bailey. Torrible remembered that he had seen this Kaido when he was looking at the wanted notice before. The bounty can be described as soaring all the way up. Each time it appears in the ocean, the bounty will increase by a significant amount. It turned out to be him, no wonder he was so powerful. Doflamingo also finally remembered that this man had escaped from the Navy's sea prison several times. Every time it appears, the strength is greatly increased, which can be described as terrifying. It's just that now he is looking at the top with a blank face, and he doesn't even care about the huge wound on his waist. What is the situation? Following Kaido's gaze, a figure floated down from the sky. Here, Kiana hug. Seeing Kiana on the ground, Arthur opened his arms and walked over with a smile. Humph, don't you come here. Kiana took a step back with a sharp gaze, and the spear of Yakan next to her was ready to fire. Well, hey, don't be so cold. Obviously you were still very enthusiastic before. Do you need me to help you recall? Arthur said and blinked. The cold Kiana still has a unique charm. You, shut up, rude human, Bella hit him. Kiana angrily shouted at Bella, who had returned to her human form next to her. Well, Queen. Bella can't beat it. Bella lowered her head and whispered with her two index fingers pointing at each other with some embarrassment. You. Kiana was angry for a while, and she didn't know what to say. Okay, you want to hit me. Arthur came to Kiana viciously. What are you going to do? With a wave of her right hand, Akon's spear stabbed out, but Arthur grabbed it. Hee, what to do? The only thing you can be arrogant about is now. Wait until I go back and see how I clean you up. A smile tugged at the corner of Arthur's mouth, pinching Kiana's chin and rubbing it gently. The two pairs of eyes looked at each other, and a strange color gradually appeared in the golden eyes. You. Let go of me. Kiana clenched her fist and tilted her head aside. I curse this damn body in my heart. A little provocation from Arthur gave the body an instinctive urge to respond. Call. With a gentle breath in her ears, Kiana couldn't help but shudder. They all said to let you go quickly. The fist clenched and swung forward, and Arthur stepped back. Looking at Kiana, who was a little out of breath, a smile curled up at the corner of Arthur's mouth. Sample, you're still far from fighting me. What's wrong, Kiana? Isn't it comfortable? If it's wet, I'll wipe it for you. Arthur was about to lean forward with a concerned expression, but a flash of light flashed on Kiana's body, and her golden eyes gradually disappeared. What's wrong with you, Captain? Kiana blinked her big blue eyes and looked at Arthur, who was smiling obscenely in front of her, suspiciously, and then frowned. It's weird, my body. As he spoke, he touched around, and he always felt that something was wrong. Ahem, it's fine. Arthur coughed lightly and shook his head. It's still the lawyer's personality that is more fun, and it's fun to resist. But it's a pity that I'm smart now, and I will retreat as soon as I feel like I'm at a disadvantage. Captain, those Navy men are on the island. Hearing Rita's words, Arthur turned his head to look. Sure enough, a dense navy was surrounding them, and it was Akainu who led the team at the forefront. Looking at Arthur in front of him, Akainu's brows couldn't help jumping. Previously, Kiana had returned all of their attacks, and although many of the ship's armed forces resisted, they still suffered heavy losses. More than 30% of the warships were sunk by the bombing, and many navies even fell into the water, and rescue work is now underway. Normally, when this happens, you must retreat, but how could Akainu leave in such a gloomy way? It's the Navy, Dover, what do we do now? Seeing the Navy surround them, Torapol asked vigilantly. Why don't we just rush out? Diamanti is also ready for battle. No, just look at it. Doflamingo glanced at Arthur, standing still and not moving. As Arthur got closer, he could already see everyone around him very clearly. The strength of each of these people is not what he can deal with now. Akainu is well aware of this. Akainu, So many of you navies aren't here to arrest me, are you? Arthur looked at the red dog in front of him, and like the pheasant, he was also a major general. That's right, we're here to get him. Akainu took a deep breath and pointed at Kaido in the distance. Kaido, who was standing the farthest away, looked confused at the moment. Catch me. Kaido pointed at himself in disbelief, then at Arthur and then at Doflamingo. These two guys stand in front of you and don't catch me. That's right, it's you Kaido who caught it, up. When the surrounding navy heard Akainu's order, they immediately rushed towards Kaido. In the end, standing in front of Arthur, Akainu still didn't dare to gamble on the fate of the destruction of the entire fleet, and temporarily shifted the target. Well, then I won't bother you. Arthur shrugged his shoulders and continued. After catching Kaido, please give him a few more chains of sea building stones, and every time you let him escape, is there any shame in your navy? A fluttering sentence smoked Kaido's 7 orifices in the distance. Arthur, I am at odds with you. An angry roar was drowned out in the artillery fire. Akainu took one last look at Arthur, his gaze full of complexity, and then rushed towards Kaido. Some people in Doflamingo were a little confused about such a dramatic scene. I thought there was going to be a battle, but I didn't expect it. After Doflamingo, the first cooperation was very pleasant, so let's scale it up. In the port of the island, the sailing ships of Hyperion and Doflamingo sailed in 2 directions. And this time, with Doflamingo's departure, Arthur's possession officially spread to the sea. It has made an important paving for the establishment of a prosperous city in the future. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 105. In the conference room of the Navy headquarters. That's how it happened, sorry Marshal, even Kaido we didn't catch it. Akainu stood in front of Steelkara with some frustration. There are many people in the Navy, but Akainu's mind is not on capturing Kaido at all. Although Kaido was seriously injured, he still managed to let him escape in the end. I don't blame you for this, I didn't expect to meet the Arthur pirates. Steelbone's brow furrowed. Carp's main mission now is to hunt down the Roger pirates. Sengoku was to sit in the naval headquarters. Suddenly, they realized that there were really few people in their navy who could be transferred. Nowadays, the Arthur pirate ships are becoming more and more active on the seas, and our navy must also take action. Sengoku thought for a moment and spoke. Warring States General, do you have any good ideas? Yes Marshal, just a few small thoughts. Faced with the question of the steel bones, Sengoku nodded and continued. Once, because the Locks pirates had just been disbanded, our navy set the bounty for the Arthur pirates very low, just to keep them from attracting attention. When Locks was alive, it was almost the belief of the pirates. The Rocks pirates were disbanded and the faith collapsed, which was a very good thing for the navy. But if the Arthurian pirates, which were on a par with the Rocks pirates, were brought into the public sight at that time, the faith would be shifted. For the navy, it is a matter of harm and no benefit. So at that time, the Sea World government deliberately suppressed the news of the Arthur pirate ship. In addition, Charlotte Lingling, Whitebeard, Golden Lion, Kaido, Roger and other pirates are active. The Arthur pirates have almost disappeared from the public's sight. It can be said that this move was quite successful. Cyborg nodded at Sengoku's words, motioning for him to continue. Now that the time of Locks is over, and the heroes are standing together, raising the bounty on the Arthur pirates can help the other navies discern and reduce losses. And it can invisibly play the role of surveillance. This is the idea of Sengoku, to raise the bounty of Arthur and his party. Then everyone knows their great strength, so that some unwitting navy can avoid rushing forward recklessly. And the increase in the bounty amount will attract the attention of many people, so it will be easier for their navy to get the news. I have to say that this method of the Warring States is to kill multiple birds with one stone. The era of locks is over, and even if a powerful pirate appears again, faith will not be formed. Okay, just do it. As for the amount of the bounty, you can see for yourself. Cyborg thought about it and agreed to the plan. Okay Marshal, a new bounty will be issued later. The next day, a bounty warrant appeared on the sea that shocked the sea. Inside a tavern, this is where many people chat and fart. What do you think this is? A man hurried in with a bounty in his hand. Isn't it just a bounty order? The person sitting at the door snatched the bounty order, just glanced at it, and his eyes widened instantly. I'm not mistaken, am I? The bounty is as high as 5 billion. Who is this person? Why haven't you heard of it before? 3 consecutive sentences instantly attracted the attention of everyone in the tavern. You can't be mistaken, it seems that none of the highest bounties today have exceeded 3 billion. Many are clearly not convinced. I don't believe you. As he spoke, he slapped the bounty on the table, side by side. Arthur Alexander, with a bounty of 5 billion. Rita Lothweiser, with a bounty of 3 billion. Raiden May, the bounty is 3 billion. Kiana Kislana, with a bounty of 4 billion. Brynyazaja Ek, with a bounty of 1 billion. Benares, with a bounty of 2.5 billion. Is this all a pirate group? When did such a terrifying existence emerge on the sea? Looking at the amount on the bounty order, everyone's eyes widened. At the same time, in a luxurious palace on a small island in the sea, Charlotte Lingling looked at the bounty in her hand, and her mouth kept eating sweets. Arthur's pirates, refusing to cooperate with me in the first place is your greatest loss. Now I have several small islands, Mom. The sound of laughter came from inside the palace, but there was no trace of laughter, more of it was cold. On the other side, on top of a huge sailing ship. Dad, look at the newly released bounty order, the bounty amount is so much. Marco caught a stack of bounty orders running from a distance, with an excited look on his face. Oh! Whitebeard carefully set aside a small bowl of wine in his hand. Smelling the aroma of the wine, you can know that the name of this bowl of wine is Emperor Drunk. Receiving the bounty order from Marco, the first person on it made Whitebeard's eyes widen. Arthur. A faint voice spat out of Whitebeard's mouth, and his thoughts couldn't help but drift to the day he joined the Low N.S. Pirates. If he had joined the Arthur Pirates that day, I'm afraid it would have been a different outcome now. Daddy. Seeing Whitebeard's somewhat melancholy gaze, Marco scratched his head in confusion. Nothing. Come, let's have a drink. As he spoke, Whitebeard took out a crystal bottle, which made Marco's eyes light up instantly. Usually this wine Whitebeard is not allowed to touch it, how can he be willing to take it out today? Forget it, no matter, it's good to have something to drink. On a small island. Kaido looked at the bounty in front of him and tore it to shreds in anger. Arthur. The sound squeezed out between his teeth showed Kaido's anger. Okay, Arthur, one day I'll knock you down completely, wait. Kaido finished speaking and left angrily. You can see that the huge wound on his abdomen has healed most of it. Its vitality and ability to recover are terrifying. On the other side of the sea, a huge sailing ship is moving forward, and just by looking at its appearance, you can see that the craftsmanship of the sailing ship is extremely simple. This is the Oro Jackson, built by Master Tom for Roger. It's amazing, there's so much bounty. Riley looked at the bounty in his hand and couldn't help but smash his mouth. What bounty order? At that moment, a small head with red hair suddenly approached from the side. Wow, there are 5 billion Baileys. Shank's eyes widened instantly. Who is this, even more powerful than Captain Roger? In Shanks's heart, Roger is already a very powerful existence, but the bounty is far from reaching 5 billion. This man is a legend. Lei Li shook her head as she spoke, more emotionally. The navy was spotted on the right. Just then, a shout came from the watchtower. The chase between the navy and the pirates is once again staged. In the mist-shrouded sky, several islands are suspended. This is the headquarters of the flying pirates created by the Golden Lion Shiki. And in the room of one of the islands. Ha ha ha, Arthur, finally have news from you. The Golden Lion Shiji held a wanted notice in his hand, and an ecstatic voice shouted out of his mouth. Wait for me, I'll find you right away. I said it back then. The next time we see you, you're sure to pay the price you deserve. As he spoke, Shiki's gaze became cold. When he asked Arthur for cooperation, he was not only refused, but also smashed his ship into the sunk, which Ski still remembers. Later, he worked hard to develop his own power and became a hegemon. At this moment, he got news of Arthur again. Isn't this a providence? Gave him a chance to take revenge. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 106. As the sun sets, the clouds flutter in the sky like dyed marshmallows. Below, on the calm sea, Hyperion moved forward slowly. On the deck, Arthur and his party were engaged in after-dinner activities. Captain, do you need Rita to rub your shoulders for you? Rita came to Arthur's side with a smile on her face, looking quite beautiful in her short-sleeved maid outfit as always. Let me rub it for you, it's been a hard day. Arthur said as he pulled Rita to sit on a stool. Captain, you really flattered Rita with your appearance, don't you think anything bad about it? Feeling the strength coming from her shoulders, Rita raised her head slightly, with a hint of wisdom that saw through everything in her smile. You're really thinking too much, Rita. Arthur shook his head speechlessly. Did he look like such a bad person? Well, then it's going to trouble the captain. Rita stopped talking, leaned back on the stool, and slowly enjoyed herself with her eyes closed. From time to time, it also makes some very comfortable sounds. This made several pairs of eyes next to him look at it in unison. Well. A soft nasal voice came outward, feeling the gaze cast around him. Arthur was sure that Rita definitely did it on purpose. The captain never seemed to say he was going to treat us. Kiana stood aside, her face shocked. Yes, Mei has never enjoyed such treatment. Rita, I really envy you. Mei sigh made the corners of Arthur's eyes jump. Brnya is also a little concerned. What is it like to be served by the captain? Brnya tilted her head slightly, as if she was seriously thinking about the question. After a while, Bella didn't speak any language, and Kiana's gaze turned to the past. Ahem, Bella cares too. Then everyone's eyes were focused on Arthur at the same time. Rita didn't care about these glances, and the corners of her mouth hooked up an inexplicable smile. Captain, you've slowed down, it's not your style. Arthur really wanted to slap himself in the face now. What are you doing when you're idle? Okay, everyone else is jealous. Ahem, for the sake of how hard you all worked before, I'll help you rub them one by one in a while, and go sit next to you first. As a last resort, Arthur could only do this. As soon as the words fell, several people were already sitting next to them. The look of anticipation in his eyes. It was so fast that the corners of Arthur's mouth twitched. Now that it's all been said, it's going to be done. Nor can it be perfunctory. Everyone pinched for half an hour, and the sky was already full of stars. For the first time, Arthur felt that he was so tired just by pinching someone's shoulder. Weakly returning to his room and lying on the bed, Arthur breathed a long sigh of relief. In the future, this kind of death must not be done again. Then I opened the system interface and looked at each function. The friendship points above are almost enough. Just then, there was a knock on the door outside. Captain, Are you asleep? Rita's voice came from outside. Arthur snapped his finger and opened the door directly, and sat up in a lying position. Rita, May, Kiana, Bella, and the two walked in carrying a boxy cardboard box. What are you doing here? Arthur blinked, full of confusion. He, Captain, this is a gift from Brnya, but cherish it, after all, it is so delicate. Kiana said with a mysterious expression. Then the four of them slowly lowered the cardboard box to the ground. If you read a violent novel, go to Philu Novel Network. Then ask the captain to taste it slowly, and we won't bother. After Rita finished speaking, the four of them walked out of the room and closed the door with them. It's really strange, why didn't Brnya come by herself as a gift for me? Arthur said as he crouched next to the cardboard box, which was not sealed, so it could be opened easily. I hope Captain likes the cake that Brnya made. Inside the box was a cake covered with various fruits. The cream is white and flawless, reaching out and touching it, as if it can make people's hearts melt. Does the captain like it? Rita said it tasted just right. Seeing that Arthur had been staring without speaking, Brnya spoke softly. Loved it, it was like a work of art. Arthur gently picked up the cake in the box and slowly placed it on the table next to him. So, Captain, where are you going to taste it? Let's start with this little cherry. Arthur said as he pinched the cherry on top of the cake. The cherry was small, unripe, and had a faint pink color. When you put it in your mouth, a sweet sensation spreads, and you are reluctant to swallow it directly in one go. I bit my teeth gently, and I could feel the subtle feeling of softness and hardness. Captain, the cream is about to fall. Brnya, who was next to her, looked at Arthur with a faint smile on her face. Seeing that Arthur only focused on the fruit on the cake, and ignored the rest of the place, after a long time, the cream was about to melt, and he couldn't help but remind softly. Knowing Brnya, don't worry, eating cake also requires skills, let the captain teach you well today. Arthur said as he reached out and brushed the cake from top to bottom. It's like this, the cream is soft, but when you stir it a few times, it will get better and smoother. As he spoke, Arthur demonstrated several times in a row. Would you like to taste it? Well, Brnya already feels it. Brenya's slight voice echoed around her. You need to bring out the flavor of the cream to the fullest, so that you can really taste it. Then let me taste you. Gently cut the cake with a knife, revealing the surprise wrapped inside. Half an apple. It's red, and it looks cute. Rita said that it would be better if there was an apple in the cake, and Brnya didn't understand why. Brnya said, her eyes slightly puzzled. It doesn't matter. Arthur said and gently licked the cream stained on the surface of the apple, and finally got a glimpse of Lushan's true face. The apples are not large, oval in shape, and the faint fruity aroma emanates from them, making you want to taste them slowly. Is that okay? Brnya. If it's the captain, no problem. Words with a hint of nervousness echoed through the room. After all, it's the first time, and if it doesn't taste good, it's not what Brnya wants to see. Since it's made by Brnya, it must taste good. Looking at the half apple in his hand, Arthur said and took a bite lightly, nodding at Brenya's expectant gaze for a long time. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 107. Early in the morning, Arthur looked at Brnya, who was sleeping soundly next to him. The light gray hair was completely spread out, covering half of the face, and the calm face was very serene. Get a good night's sleep. Gently straightening up the somewhat messy strands of hair, Arthur let out a sigh. Of course, it is impossible to say that it is fun. In that case, I am afraid that Brnya will be very hurt, and Arthur naturally can't do that. However, this cautious behavior brings a different kind of experience. Lean on the head of the bed to open the system interface, and the friendship points above are enough. Tap 10 times to replenish, and the character fragments you get are enough to raise Brynja's level to S rank. Unlocked Xenomorph Black Core Erosion Armor. Although there is an extra pair of armor, it does not have much effect on the improvement of Brynja's strength. It is a qualitative leap that must be promoted to the full level. The door opened softly, and Rita walked in. Glanced at Brynja, who was still asleep, and whispered to Arthur. "Is the captain still happy with this gift?" With a faint smile on his face, he seemed to have known Arthur's answer. "You're even more anxious than I am." Arthur shook his head speechlessly, and finally added. "It was great though. He, I know you're going to like it, Captain." The smile on Rita's face grew a little stronger. "Captain should accompany Brynja today. But watch out for that little vinegar jar, don't knock it over." Rita leaned over Arthur's face and tapped lightly and continued. "Breakfast is about to be ready, so let's get down as soon as possible." After saying that, he turned and left. However, Arthur did not go down immediately, but waited for more than half an hour, and Brynja slowly opened her eyes. "Captain, morning." Brynja arched upwards as she spoke, holding Arthur's arm with both hands, her little head resting on her shoulder, looking very attached. "Are you already awake, Blonia? How is your body feeling?" Although Arthur felt that he was very gentle, it was inevitable that he could not control it in the depths of his love. "It's okay, Captain, Brynja is fine." Brynja shook her head as she spoke, as if she was afraid that Arthur would not be upset, and then stood up. The sunlight outside shone on Brynja, causing her body to glow haze. After a spin in front of Arthur, Brynja squatted down. "Look, Captain, Brynja really doesn't have anything to do." With his hands on his chest, he raised his head and looked at Arthur with a serious gaze. "Well, I've seen it clearly." Arthur nodded, although there was some redness and swelling, but he should be fine after 2 days of rest. Sure enough, for Brynja, it's still a little reluctant. "Breakfast, Rita, is ready, let's go down." "Well, can the captain take Brynja down?" There was a faint anticipation in Brynja's eyes. "There's certainly nothing wrong with such a trifle." Arthur picked up Brynja as he spoke, and 10 minutes later, the two walked out of the room. "Haven't you eaten yet?" When I came to the door of the stairs, I found that although Rita and the others had already taken their seats, no one had moved their chopsticks. The heat from the food that filled the table had also faded a lot. "Looks like it's been going to be ready for some time." "We've all been waiting for you, Captain, so take a seat." "You don't have to wait for me, eat it quickly. If you don't eat it, it's really going to be cold." Arthur sighed, for Rita's care and tolerance, only deeply moved in his heart. Sitting in his seat with Brynja in his arms, he was about to move his chopsticks. "Brynja, why are you still clinging to the captain?" Although she willingly gave Brynja to Arthur yesterday, it does not mean that she can be indifferent to such a situation today. But Brynja loved the feeling of being held by the captain. The faint riback made Kiana stunned for a while. "Do you like it?" "I like it too." "No, Brynja, you come down quickly." Brynja was indifferent to Kiana's words, referring instead to one of the dishes. "Captain, Brynja wants to eat that." "Okay, I'll clip it to you." Seeing the two of them completely ignoring her, Kiana was almost about to go berserk. A faint hint of gold emerged in his blue eyes. Arthur saw that this secret passage was not good. If the personality of the lawyer is revealed, this breakfast will not be eaten. "All right, Kiana, come over if you want." The momentum that had just risen around Kiana dissipated instantly, and she asked with a wink. "Captain, is it really possible?" Seeing Arthur nodding, Kiana happily sat down on the other side. At this moment, Arthur was completely occupied, and he couldn't even eat. "Captain, come, I'll feed you." Kiana enjoyed the feeling and offered the meal to the corner of Arthur's mouth, as did Brynja next to her. A breakfast was done with a bit of a chicken and a dog jumping. For these, Mei and Rita glanced at each other and shook their heads helplessly. Captain, Captain, look, our bounty has been raised, alas. After breakfast, Arthur was resting on the couch when Kiana ran in from outside with a stack of wanted notices in her hand. When he came to Arthur, his excited face immediately collapsed. Brynja, why are you still stuck with the captain? Although she was happy to be with Arthur, Kiana was an idle lord and left her arms after breakfast. But seeing Brynja lying in Arthur's arms all the time, her heart instantly became unbalanced. All right, Kiana, let's talk about the wanted warrant. Arthur hurriedly changed the subject. I am still entangled in this issue, and I don't know when it will be. Sure enough, the nervous Kiana was successfully led astray and waved the wanted warrant in her hand. Captain, look, your bounty is already as high as 5 billion Bailey. Hearing this number, Arthur was also slightly surprised. 5 billion Baileys, it should be the highest above the sea. What tricks is the Navy playing again, how to suddenly increase the bounty amount? Rita, Mei, both of you have 3 billion Baileys. Rita and Mei, who heard the movement, also walked over and took their bounty orders from Kiana. Oops, I didn't expect the price to go up so much. Rita touched her cheek with some surprise. Bella, it's yours, the reward is 2.5 billion. Kiana handed over Bella's bounty order. Ha ha ha, guess how much Miss Ben's bounty is. Kiana tilted her head triumphantly, and after a while held out 4 fingers. Is it 40 million? It's not, it's 40.04 billion. Kiana said as she showed everyone her wanted notice. It's not bad, 4 billion Bailey, and it's worthy of the title of the lawgiver of the sky. Arthur nodded slightly. Brynja, there is also your bounty here, which is 1 billion Bailey. Although it is a little less now, I believe that it will not be long before you will improve upward, although you will not be able to reach the height of Miss Ben. Kiana put Brynja's wanted warrant in front of Arthur, and her tone was full of pride. Brynja didn't care about that. Brynja said as she hugged Arthur's neck and leaned on her shoulder. This scene made Kiana's excited face slowly converge. Why does it feel like she's winning and it's feeling like she's already lost? Arthur didn't care why the Navy raised their bounty. Because he now has enough strength to face all problems. Strong strength is the guarantee of everything. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 108. Inside the bridge of the Hyperion, Rita was looking at the large screen in front of her to observe the situation around her. Well, the front should be the destination that the captain said. In front of Hugh Bryan, the silhouettes of several islands that were close together loomed. At the current speed, it is believed that it can be reached in tens of minutes. Rita then checked the surroundings of the place where the voyage had passed, then nodded in satisfaction and turned to leave. In the living room, Arthur is playing chess with Kiana. Looking at Kiana's frowning appearance, the battle situation must be very unfavorable for her. Dear Kiana, you've been thinking about it for almost 2 minutes, why don't you just admit defeat? Arthur said as he reached out and touched Brynja's little head next to him, with a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. Humph, Miss Ben won't admit defeat. Kiana muttered, her big eyes staring at the chessboard, trying to find a way to crack it. Rita, who was passing by, took one look and shook her head. The seemingly evenly matched situation on the chessboard has actually formed a lore situation. Whoever Kiana moves, she will be defeated all the way. The captain is really bad-hearted. With a faint smile on her lips, Rita went to the kitchen to prepare the fruit. Finally, when Arthur's house was about to fall asleep, Kiana moved cautiously. Shelling. Vault. Soldiers. General. With every move Kiana makes, she is eaten by Arthur's pawns that she has laid out in advance, and in the end, only a poor general remains. Hey, don't play anymore, Captain, You bully me. Seeing the only single seedling left, Kiana's mouth was deflated, and her big eyes were full of grievances. Haha, okay, let's play another game, this time let you win me. Really? Arthur nodded. Soon Kiana's cheering voice could be heard in the living room. Captain, the destination can already be seen. At this moment, Rita's voice came from the side. Is it already there? Great. When Kiana heard this, she jumped up and rushed out of the room like the wind. Queen, be careful. Bella, who was sitting on the side, hurriedly followed. Let's go, Brnya, Mayi, let's take a look. Arthur got up from the couch, and everyone was on deck. Captain, is that what you're talking about? May looked ahead. The appearance of the archipelago can already be seen with the naked eye. Yes, didn't you say I was going to take you to see a mermaid? Arthur nodded, and there was some anticipation in his heart. Mermaid. Has always been the best fantasy in my heart before. Are you really going to see a mermaid? Kiana was also excited. Before we go over, let's take a walk around the island and see how Doflamingo and the others are doing. The last time he left Doflamingo, Arthur brought him to the Chambord Islands. Because this is a place where the world's aristocratic Draco people are often active. For those world aristocrats who spend a lot of money, Bailey's tens of millions are just a drizzle. Arriving at the port smoothly along the way, seeing that there was no one around, Arthur received Hyperion into the system warehouse. These bubbles are so beautiful. Everyone was amazed to see the bubbles fluttering upwards from the ground. Because the island is made up of many large trees, and the ground is the roots, bubbles bubble. Arthur glanced around. If you just look at the scenery of this island, it is indeed very good. Let's go, be careful, this isn't a good place. Turning on the communicator, Doflamingo's location was instantly locked, and Arthur and his party set off towards their destination with a watchful attitude. Area 5 of the Chambord Islands, which is an outlaw zone, but also a place that many people would like to visit. There was mainly a human trade and a slave trade, but a few days ago, the arrival of a group of people had changed the area dramatically. A simple bottle of wine is enough to make those aristocrats of the world go crazy. Not to mention the auction that is taking place today. There are not only a lot of rare and precious wines, but also healing medicines. In the midst of the sea, injuries are a common occurrence. If the injury can be treated quickly, it is tantamount to an extra life. What's more, the slogan of this auction is, no matter how badly wounded, as long as there is still a breath left, it can be saved. The temptation to do so is undoubtedly quite enormous. Therefore, all forces came to the auction site, wanting to see if this healing elixir was as magical as the slogan said. It's so lively here. Arthur and his party came to the auction and could see that many people were entering it. There were noble merchants dressed in gorgeous clothes, and there were also many pirates. This kind of person who was originally robbed and robbed was robbed, but at this moment he walked together safely. That's the charm of the Chambord Islands. Looks like Doflamingo, they're doing pretty well. The bustling scene around him made Arthur smile. These people are all sending him money. The items in the store are actually quite cheap, and the price of selling them has increased dozens of times, which can be described as a huge profit. It is believed that as long as this auction is successfully held, it will be truly famous, and it will become an important source of income for Arthur. While thinking about entering the auction with the flow of people, it doesn't look like a bustling auction on the outside, but on the inside, it's a lot on the inside. The area is huge, and there is no problem in sitting hundreds of people. Dover, I didn't expect so many people to come. Torrible looked at the seat that was almost full, and smiled. This is just the beginning. Doflamingo's ambitions are not limited to this, he has even greater ambitions. Looking at the flow of people entering the auction, his eyes suddenly froze. I saw the figure of Arthur and his party. At this moment, a message popped up from the communicator on his arm. "Don't worry about me, you go on." Obviously, it was Arthur who sent it to him. Soon, the time was up, and the auction officially began. At this moment, in the distant sea, the golden lion Shiji single-handedly killed. Now that he knew that Arthur had appeared above the sea again, how could Shiki still sit still? Immediately sent his men to look for Arthur's traces. After getting some news, I immediately rushed over. However, at his speed, it will take some time to reach the Chambord Islands. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 109. The headquarters of the Navy is holding a regular meeting at this moment. The main content of the meeting was to discuss what had happened on the sea recently, and then to choose a more appropriate solution. Vice admirals and admirals gathered together, and it was still quite democratic. Even Carp, who has been hunting down the Roger pirates, is there. And the main content of this discussion is the powerful pirate group distributed all over the sea. For these pirate groups, what kind of actions will their navy take in the future, etc. It can be said that the results of the content will determine the direction of the future trend of the sea. Each navy expressed its own opinions, weighed the rights and disadvantages, and determined one course of action after another. The meeting lasted for most of the day before it came to an end. That's the end of today's meeting, let's go down and make arrangements. As soon as Cyborg was about to disband, suddenly the voice of a navy came from outside. Report to the Marshal, there is something important to report. During this important meeting, there is nothing very important, and the Navy will not bother. Come in and talk. The door opened, and a Navy man walked in. Report to the Marshal, according to the information we have received, the Golden Lion Shiki has arrived in the Chambord Islands. The Navy's words surprised everyone in the room. The remnants of the Golden Lion Shiki rocks pirates. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became solemn. Since the disbandment of the rocks pirates, the people on board have been scattered all over the sea, recruiting troops and developing their own forces. Although their respective strengths are gradually increasing, this is also what the Navy is happy to see. At least it's much better than them making waves on the sea. But why did all of a sudden this Shiki suddenly go to the Chambord Islands? Everyone's minds were full of doubts and they looked at each other. But whatever the reason, such powerful pirates appeared in the Chambord Islands, and they couldn't sit idly by. After all, the Chambord Islands are the sphere of activity of the world's aristocracy. And he is also a world aristocrat who is powerless. If something happens to them, it will be a dereliction of duty on the part of their navy. And in addition to the Golden Lion Shiki, the news received is suspected of discovering the traces of the Arthur pirates. As soon as the Navy said this, the whole room fell into silence. Where are the Arthur pirates you are talking about? The Steelbone stared solemnly. Chambord Islands. Speaking of which, the general situation is basically understood. Why did the Golden Lion suddenly go to the Chambord Islands? The reason for this is most likely related to the Arthur pirates. At this point, it is impossible to wait any longer. Carp. Cyborg snorted. Marshal, I'm still going to hunt down the Roger pirates, so I'll take my leave. After Carp finished speaking, he ran out in a puff of smoke, ignoring the roar of the steel bones coming from the room, and disappeared into the distance in an instant. It's a joke, he'd rather fight Roger for 3 days and 3 nights than face the perverts of the Arthur pirates anymore. This Carp, go back and settle accounts with him. Steelbone slammed his fist on the table, and looked at the people present and immediately ordered. Waring states, this time you will lead the team, Zifa and his students will assist on the side, and you must protect the lives of those celestial dragons. This mission is only to protect those Draconians, as for capturing the Arthur pirates. Perhaps all of their navies will be dispatched, and there will be a glimmer of possibility. Yes. Sengoku and Zifa glanced at each other, nodded, and immediately went down to prepare. The Golden Lion, Arthur, they're all headaches. Steel Gukong sighed and shook his head slightly, his eyes full of helplessness. The auction in the third area of the Chambord Islands has officially come to an end. Seeing many people walking out of the door with shocked faces on their faces is a sign of how successful the auction was. The value of this auction alone is nearly 1 billion Baileys. I really didn't expect you to come. The auction was almost gone, and Doflamingo led his men to Arthur. With a smile on his face, he was very satisfied with the auction. Yes, from today onwards, you will be considered completely famous for auctions, and there will be an endless stream of buyers. Arthur nodded in satisfaction. After all, the effect was there. Doflamingo directly brought a person to a near-death state on the spot, and then treated him on the spot with drugs. In less than half an hour, the person who was about to breathe was already fine. I believe that no one will not be tempted by this intuitive performance. The main thing is that the medicine you gave is really strong, and even I was surprised. Speaking of this, Doflamingo was also amazed. Well, the efficacy of the drug is assured, it is absolutely guaranteed. Arthur nodded and continued. Now you have to be careful, it's something that everyone will covet. I don't want the proceeds of today's auction, you immediately go and gather a group of subordinates, only if you have a foothold in this place, can you create more profits. Arthur was talking about world government. Something at auction spreads and is bound to attract the attention of the world government. Although Doflamingo's previous identity was a Draco, it was the previous one after all. Please rest assured that my subordinates have already found their words, and they are now on their way over. As for what would happen in the future, Doflamingo would naturally think about it and be prepared for it. Well, that's fine, then I won't bother you, we still have some things to do. Arthur beckoned Rita to them as they were leaving, and just walked out of the door. They were greeted by a powerful momentum. Rumble. The momentum was like a missile, and the dust flew everywhere it passed, knocking the people around it far away. Arthur. A roar of rage rolled outward like thunder. Boom. From polar movement to extreme silence, Shiki's figure suddenly stopped in front of Arthur. The surrounding momentum exploded in all directions. Click. Boom. Under the momentum, cracks gradually spread on the surface of the auction house, and finally exploded because it could not bear it. This made Doflamingo look confused, his house had just been built. The momentum dissipated, revealing the figure inside. He has long blonde hair that stretches to the ground like a lion's sideburns, wears a normal Japanese kimono, and holds two famous swords, Sakuraju and Deadwood. He is burly and domineering. He has the ambition and courage to roar all over the world and swallow the world. Golden Lion Shiki. Brothers, it's number 1, ask for a few monthly passes to decorate the FAA, and the accumulation can have a 2-digit number, and a 3-digit number is not extravagant. Good guy, the chapters that passed were banned, and it seems that someone reported it, well done. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 110. Arthur. A roar burst out of the Golden Lion's mouth with a rolling sound. The Golden Lion Shiji, whose whole body was like a rainbow, made the people around him retreat far away, not daring to approach. Long time no see, Shiki. As for Sky's memory, Arthur only stayed when he was looking for his cooperation. I haven't encountered it since then, but I didn't expect it to come to the door automatically today. It's been a long time, Arthur. Shiki gritted his teeth and looked at Arthur. I've always wanted to run into you again and cut you into 3 pieces with my own hands. The resentful voice made Arthur a little confused. We don't seem to have much enmity, do we? Ha 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 ha, let me die. Seeing Arthur's indifferent look, Shiki finally couldn't help but shoot directly. With a slight wave of the two famous swords Sakura Ten and Deadwood in his hand, the powerful sword chi spread out to both sides, tearing the earth apart and rushing straight towards Arthur. Seeing this scene, Mei Yi shot directly, and a thunderbolt flashed, turning into the Law of Thunder and blocking Arthur. Holding the long sword Heavenly Death Realm Judgment, the purple blade exudes an ominous aura. In the face of the two oncoming slashes, he paused and went straight up. Bumper. The same two sword chi burst out, and both collided with each other, emitting a huge explosion. The sword chi raged, stirring everything around it beyond recognition. Retreat, 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 retreat. Those who were still watching the play around saw the sword chi attacking, and hurriedly retreated in fright. A big tree hugged by three people directly shattered in the raging sword chi, which made people look jaw-dropping. It seems that the Navy's bounty is still somewhat accurate. Looking at Mei Yi standing in front of him, Shiji smiled, holding the two famous knives and soaring into the air. Just let me see how much water is in your bounty. The two fought together again, sword chi surrounding. The torn earth gradually expands outward. Captain, this enemy is very strong. Rita's eyes narrowed slightly, but her tone was very flat. It's normal to be strong, after all, it's the Golden Lion Shiji, and he hasn't used the power of the fruit until now. As one of the top combat forces at sea, the strength of the Golden Lion is beyond doubt. Can we go and help? Kiana stood beside her, a little eager to try. No, Mei can solve it. The Golden Lion is strong, but Mei Yi is not weak either. Oh. All right. Kiana's expression instantly became a little depressed, but it was only for a moment, and then she immediately became excited and shouted loudly. Mei Yi, come on, the captain said, if you win, I will confess to you. A loud voice came out, and Arthur looked at Kiana, who stuck out her tongue at him, and shook her head speechlessly. At this moment, in the originally evenly matched battle, a strong sword intent burst out. With the appearance of the sword intent, everyone felt as if there was a knife suspended around their necks, which made people feel cold all over their bodies. No, I don't want to stay here any longer, help. Some fled the area in such a panic that they were urinating. In the center of the battlefield, a huge sword bolt swung forward. The Golden Lion's two swords intersected to resist the sword ray, and the powerful force made its muscles bulge, and its whole face turned red. Yikes, give it to me. Little by little, the twin swords were raised, and the huge sword that slashed at him gradually changed direction. Brush. The sword slashed upwards into the sky. Look at the sky. There was an exclamation from the crowd of onlookers, and everyone couldn't help but look up. A huge crack appeared in the sky, seemingly halved in half. It's going to be split this day. Torribal's eyes widened, his face full of disbelief. Dafran's eyes were also full of incredulity, and only then did he remember that Mei had dealt with them before. No wonder they can be killed in one move, this strength is really terrifying. Wuyo, call, Wuyo. Golden Lion Shiki gasped heavily. Forcibly changing the attack from Mei has already made him use all his strength. At this time, the gaze that looked at Mei Yi was already full of solemnity. This is a very strong opponent. Very well, I have recognized your strength. Mei Yi was surrounded by calls, her purple eyes were deep, and she didn't speak, but the momentum around her body was becoming more and more vigorous. Lion's wool. In the face of a powerful opponent, he naturally had to exert all his strength, and the Golden Lion unleashed the power of the Devil Fruit at the first time. With the Golden Lion as the center, the surrounding ground gradually boiled and rapidly expanded outward, affecting the entire island. What is this? No, ah! Run, run! The swept earth churned upward, and the people around it fell into this torrent in an instant. There was a cry and a cry for mercy, but in an instant it was drowned out by this rushing torrent. The momentum was so great that even the warships sailing on the sea could see it clearly. It's really a big commotion. I'm afraid this island will be completely destroyed under this blow. Zifa looked into the distance, and the words that came out of his mouth made the warring states on the side look solemn. It's really amazing. Are we going to fight against such a guy? The yellow ape still had an underbeaten expression, and there was no joy or anger on his face. Arthur. The pheasant looked ahead, muttering to himself, and a battle intent gradually appeared in his eyes. If it is against other abilities and loses, he has nothing to say. However, with the same use of ice, he fell downwind and even froze. This is a great disgrace. The whole ship picks up. At the order of the warring states, the speed of the warship was a few points faster again. The third island of the Chambord archipelago, at this moment, most of the area is galloping under the power of the golden lion's fluttering fruit. After forming a number of lion-headed shaped soil queens. Each lion's head was nearly 100 meters tall and pounced towards me. In the face of this kind of attack, which seemed to be the power of heaven and earth, Mei Yi turned her right hand, her eyes were slightly condensed, and the words that came out of her mouth did make people a little stunned. For the captain's confession. The body turned into thunder and rushed straight in. He, Captain, Mei Yi will win when the time comes, but remember to confess. Kiana, who was behind her, saw Arthur stunned and touched her arm. An expression of anticipation for the show. The band chapter was changed 7 or 8 times in a row before it passed, wasting a lot of time, and the update was a little late, so it seems that you will have to be careful in the future. But 5 days a day will not change.